Samantha Russell. Oh, I have been waiting for this time for so long. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. We feel so honored and so privileged that you're here today. Thank you. For everybody else for listening. Um, Samantha, you're just an incredible mother and wife and person, and just um we were supposed to do this last month, everybody. So I did get a few emails, and hopefully we got everybody on the same page. I promise everybody's going to get replay of this, even if you were registered for last month and you couldn't make it for this month. This is a special, one of a kind conversation. I will be totally transparent with you that I'm probably going to get very emotional today. This is the most sacred and special book club that we've ever had, ever, here at Intentionally.
Thank you so much for having me, Tina. And I feel the same way, 100%. And apologies to anybody who did sign up and then we couldn't do it. I came down with an awful case of the flu. Otherwise, I would have never canceled. I had no voice. But I know everyone's time is precious. So thank you for being understanding.
Oh, of course, of course. And I was so happy to see you. I was so happy to see you lately in the feed. You're coming to us from Orlando. You were just at the Shift conference speaking there.
Yes.
I was so excited to see to see your face on social. And how was it?
The Shift conference was great. It was my first time being back at a industry event or really any kind of work event in almost a year. So I was a little nervous, honestly, going into it, that I would be able to just get through it and not get too emotional, all that stuff. But it ended up being the most uplifting, good for the soul thing. There's so many people in our industry that are just so incredibly kind, have reached out to me and my family and been there for us. And I know, Tina, you've had the same thing with some of your own experiences. And I just felt so supported and loved on. And the event itself was wonderful. And I learned so much and took so many notes. And now I'm coming to you live from Disney World. I'm in my hotel room. We're down here. The grandparents and the kids met me. So we're down here now for the rest of the week for the kids' Easter break. So
Uh,
they get back from the parks and it gets loud. I'll just knock the door, but
that's
they
okay.
will
That's
be.
okay. How are your three little ones? Hudson, Grace, and Teddy. How's everybody
Yeah.
doing? How are they?
Hudson's 8, Grace is 6, and Teddy's 2. And their kids are so resilient. Um, it's amazing. I mean, my oldest, who's 8, um, he's definitely had the hardest time of any of the
Mm.
three kids, which makes sense. He struggled the most with just how to manage his feelings and, communicate it. But, overall, sometimes they will say things to me and I just want to stop everything and write it down because the kids are just so wise beyond their years and we can learn, I think, so much from them. And we have a strong faith as a family, and they will talk about, well, we'll see our dad in heaven again, so even when I feel sad, I'm happy about that. Or we were reading a book about children living in a refugee camp called where stars are scattered, or when stars are scattered, something like that. And it's a true story. This gentleman who grew up in Somalia and then moved to, or he had to go to this refugee camp for like 12 years before he was able to come to the States. And, they had nothing, no food, no house, living in a tent. And my kid and they had no parents. And my kid said, wow, we lost dad, but look at these kids. They lost both their parents. They lived in a refugee camp and they went on to do all these amazing things. So they're just constantly trying to see the silver lining, which I'm just so incredibly grateful for.
Well, we're incredibly grateful that you're here. We're going to talk about Ryan's book, and I've got three extra copies, ladies and gentlemen, waiting for that has your name on it. A couple of housekeeping issues. I'm going to try to skip over this as quick as I can, but you all know that this is not financial advice. We're not giving financial advice. This is just education in nature. You all have links for Ryan's book. If you have children and grandchildren, which I both have, you should definitely get the book. It's very, very unique. It's exciting. We're going to be talking about it. What a tribute to Ryan Russell also. And important links there too, if you're looking for information about cancer, Ryan's life lessons, which by the way, I carry around my mass card in my purse. I have like a special, I can't, Mark will tell you I carry around all kinds of things. And I carry around that mass card and Ryan's picture. So we're gonna have some inspirational moments here, everybody, and we're gonna have some emotional moments. So please make sure that you're already connected. If you're maybe like the one or two people on this earth that aren't already connected to Samantha, her links are there. We appreciate it so much. And then if you want to recommend a book author, you guys know how to find us, book club at growintentionally.com. Let's get into Samantha's bio because it's really, truly impressive. Samantha Russell, not only Ryan's wife, mother to their three beautiful kids, Hudson, Grace, and Teddy, for whom the book is dedicated. And they are beautiful, really beautiful family. More than Ryan's wife, Samantha is a passionate advocate for his message and his legacy. In addition, she's an expert marketer. You know her from being chief evangelist at FMG. Our friends, she empowers financial advisors to leverage digital tools for growth. She speaks everywhere. She is everywhere, just coming to you right now from Shift. Samantha teaches financial advisors how to utilize digital marketing strategy to produce exponential growth through website development, content marketing, SEO, social media, video. There's not one subject in marketing that Samantha Russell can't handle. I know that. And and the industry has acknowledged you too. She has been the recipient of the Investment News 40 Under 40, Think Advisor Luminary, Wealth Management Top 10 to Watch, and so on and so on. In addition, I want to share about Ryan Russell. And after a 17-month battle with glioblastoma, brain cancer, Ryan passed away on April 23rd, 2023, just 4 weeks shy of his 41st birthday, and his lifelong dream of becoming a published author and illustrator made that dream come true. You, Samantha, made that dream come true. Ryan, educator, entrepreneur, designer, author, dad, friend, became one of the youngest tenure track professors in Penn State history when he joined the faculty in 2007. And he made a name for himself as a tough, demanding, yet highly sought after educator. He spent 17 years inspiring, mentoring, and leaving an indelible mark on thousands of students who sat in his classroom and went on to have some of the greatest careers in the world. He applied his mastery of the creative process, solving problems, scaling concepts to the business world. He co-founded the amazing marketing platform technology 20 over 10 that was acquired by FMG in San Diego. His professional accomplishments, awards, accolades are so numerous to mention. We would need what, like another week and a half here at least, to right, Samantha?
Yeah.
Really incredible. But I hope that you'll check out the links that we've included in the broadcast in tribute to such an esteemed and amazing individual who we're going to celebrate and talk about today. So welcome, Samantha Russell.
Thank you so much, Tina.
Okay. So let's talk about it. Okay, this children's book. When did Ryan first come up with that idea that he wanted to be a children's author?
Yeah, so, as you mentioned, he's a designer, he's artistic, he's always creating, he always had a sketch pad and would doodle things. And actually, back when he was in graduate school at Penn State, he had the idea for a book where it would follow a child and then their shadow, and that the book would be read initially from the child's point of view, and then you would turn the book around at the end and read it from the shadow's point of view. And really, from the day I met him, I mean, I met my husband when I was 21. I'm 38 now. Um, he always was talking about perspective and how if we could just put ourselves in the perspective or in the mindset of someone else, how much, the world would be a different place. That's being able to see things out of someone else's eyes is so important. And he wanted to relay that message to children. Um, and so he had the idea in grad school, and then he tried getting it submitted. Do you want to say hi to everybody? Sorry, we're in Disney. My daughter just came in. This is Grace,
Oh, hi, Grace.
birthday girl. You can get your
Birthday
bathing suit.
girl. How old is Grace?
She just turned 6.
Happy birthday, Grace.
So
Oh, wonderful.
everybody
We're
say
getting
happy birthday.
some, yeah,
Mama's talking to some friends about daddy's book, but you can get your bathing suit and go have Mimi or Poppy help you, okay? Thank you.
oh, I
Um,
love that.
so he had the idea in graduate school. He did reach out to some publishers at the time, but
Yeah.
didn't have any connections, and then got sidetracked with life like the rest of us do. And so he really tabled it. And it wasn't until we sold our business in November of 2020. And he had, after the business sold, he actually had a little bit of downtime. He wasn't the CEO of a company and a full professor at Penn State, that he was able to work on it again, and he was able to pick it back up.
See, I think this is ingenious. Now, I've been reading children's books for a long time. I mean, my kids are in their 30s. I've got my granddaughter's 8 months old. It is such an amazing concept that is so like future forward. So here is like, I'll give you an example of this page, for example, and then you could see that there's some type that is the flipped up and then the other that's upside down. But here's the thing, like it makes perfect sense no matter which direction you choose. What really astounded me, Samantha, are the idea of these illustrations.
Yeah.
Because how do you create, it's one thing to do the words, right? But then how do you create an illustration that works, it works brilliantly and beautifully no matter which way you turn it? That was like that blew my mind about the book.
He was the most creative, intelligent they talk about right brain and left brain, and I will say I think Ryan, more than any person I've ever met in my life, could tap into both sides of his brain. It was a skill, that anyone who met him would notice. He was so creative yet so business minded, and could do the books and run the pro formas of the business, yet come up with all these different creative ideas and strategies. And like I said, he was constantly sketching. He's actually most well known for this logo called the Snooty Peacock, where if you just look at it, you might see a peacock, or you could see a woman's face with it looked like she had big poofy hair. And so he was really into that. There's a name for it. I think it's Gestalt principle of design. That's how you say it, where something can be two different things at once. So he wanted the images to also go along with that. Again, that idea of perspective. We can all look at the same thing and see something different.
I think perspective is a word that really defines his life and his legacy. Perspective,
100%.
right? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Jason, thanks so much. Jason says happy birthday, Grace. We
Oh,
also too saw some hearts and some fireworks
yes.
and
Grace is
some confetti in
thrilled
the
that
feed as
everybody's
well
celebrating
too.
her birthday. She's happy to be in Disney World for her birthday.
So speaking of Grace, the heroine of the book is named Gracie. How appropriate. So it is like two stories in one. Can you talk a little bit about how Ryan envisioned Gracie?
Yeah. So I think, he really loved the idea. He was such a supporter of women, and, I'd almost say a feminist in some ways. And he really, when we had a daughter, he was so, we had a son, then a daughter, then a son. And he was always talking about how he wanted the world to be her oyster and her to know she could do anything she wanted. And so he wanted to name the main character after her. And, he kind of kept going back and forth initially, whether it was going to be a boy or a girl, or maybe it would be almost like a character or animal of some sort. And he settled on, our daughter, like I said, as a tribute to her, and just really trying to also convey in this message, boy or girl, but that children could be anything that they want to be. And um, it was just a way, another way to honor her. He has a very close relationship, or has always had a close relationship with, dads and their first sons. And I think this was just a nice way to try to keep the same thing going with our daughter.
That's wonderful. It's great that you have a mix of like you've got the son and then the daughter and then the
Yeah.
son. I had the opportunity to meet your children in person and they are really such a beautiful, such a mature, they have such poise.
Oh, yes. You met them when
Again,
they were running the
Yeah.
table at the funeral for those of you listening.
Yes.
Tina was amazing and drove very far to come to the funeral home. And my children, they didn't want to just stand in line. They're like their dad. They always have these creative ideas. And so they had the idea to have a table of a bunch of memorabilia from his life and show people his photos and his sketchbooks and his trophies that he won. And they would tell people all about what they were looking at. And it was such a great way to get them involved. And they did such a nice job.
We'll never forget, and I'm probably gonna get emotional around this. Like Hudson was right there at the table, and he's like, "Hey, if you have any questions about anything, just let me know. I'm happy to answer it." Something like that. And then he's looking around, and the line was out the door, around the block, everywhere. And he goes, "Wow!" And he goes, "I never knew that my dad had so many friends." And I was just like, "What an incredible observation." He was so giving. I'll always remember that. Kelly Waltrick was there along with me. And when we heard about Ryan's passing, it was like we moved heaven and earth to get there. And we would have driven like 20 hours if needed be for you, Samantha. So
Amazing.
thank you for remembering that. Let's talk a little bit about the graphics because there is really a complexity here. Did Ryan do the graphics? How did the graphics
He
how did the
did. And
okay.
we were publishing the book so fast. It's sort of
Yeah.
so those of you who follow Morgan Housel or know him, The Psychology of Money, he was really instrumental in helping me get this book published and connecting me with some contacts. And Ryan's health was declining really, really quickly when I reached out to him and had just said, look, trying to get this book published. I don't know anyone in the publishing industry. I know you know some people. I totally understand if this is like, a favor that you cannot comply with, because I'm assuming people ask him. I said, but do you happen to know anybody in the children's book world? And he literally, it was like he became our agent. Like he took it on and just was such an advocate for us. And because Ryan's health was declining and we were trying to make it happen before he
Mm.
passed, we really pushed things forward quick. And so one of the things that just kind of got didn't get added was like instead of just by Ryan Russell to say author and illustrator. I wish we would have added that. Um, as we go forward with future publications, I would love to actually add a page in the front that tells Ryan's story and why the focus was on perspective and his battle with cancer and his just outlook on life, so that hopefully will come in future editions.
Yeah, I was thinking, and I want to explore those themes a little bit deeper. And again, we'll invite any questions in the chat today. We're feeling very generous and very appreciative. Jason, I would love for you to email me, tina@growintentionally.com. I think it was so sweet that you gave Grace a happy birthday. I'd love to send a book out to you. We have some
Oh yes,
remaining
absolutely.
copies as well too here. So please, everybody, just let us know your questions in the chat, and they could be on just about any subject here, according to the book. Let me ask you a question about translating the book into different languages. Has
Mm,
that been explored? Because I'm looking at that and I was like, wow,
I
this
know it
is
really could, the pictures alone, right, could
yes. Okay.
transcend themes. I think it hasn't been like officially explored by any means. We still have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work to do to get it in the hands of children in the United States. But I will say that so many people in our financial services community have bought the book and sent it to the ends of the earth because we were trying to kind of build a map, which we're still working on, of all the places it's been. So this book is in Nepal, it is in New Zealand, it is in Australia, it is in Russia, it is in Brazil. I mean, it is really all over the world. So if any of you listening know somebody in another country and want to send a book somewhere and then let me know. We have a map where we keep track of all of the places. And it's a project. Eventually, I'm going to have an Instagram page for the book and we're going to have a whole PR campaign around it. And it's just, something that my children have really loved seeing is children all over the world, or even in their own backyard with pictures, reading their dad's book. And so many people have sent them to us. And, you know, Ryan's not here anymore, but it's just like a piece of him in the homes of all these people. And there's so much love around it. And it just feels like his memory is being carried around every single time I get one of those pictures. So thank you to all of you that have done that.
Thank
Or
you.
we'll do it in the future. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I love it. I love hearing the story. I love, again, perpetuating the legacy. Sometimes, people, especially with loss, they're not sure should they continue to talk because in fear of making people feel upset. And I think that the reverse is absolutely true, that we want to make sure that we're keeping Ryan's legacy alive by actually reflecting on his work and all of the themes that he stood for, that I too have been so meaningful to me, even with my own cancer journey. Um, so I got a message in the chat here from Jason. He purchased a book. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Jason.
thank you, Jason.
That was such a nice book. I wanted to read one of the reviews from a book. This is from Jeremy Walter, CFP. I don't know if you know who Jeremy is,
I
but
do.
he wrote a beautiful
I don't think
um
I've read this review though yet.
Okay, okay. So we're ready. Again, this is a heartfelt moment here, and I just thought that it was appropriate to read and to incorporate his perspective. Here it is. Okay, Ryan, who dedicated the book to his own three little shadows, was taken away sooner than anyone would have expected. We don't know how long we'll be casting these shadows of ours, or being the shadows ourselves. The book, beautifully and powerfully standing on its own, is amplified when you know the story of the Russell family and its beautiful legacy that Ryan will leave behind for generations. I was so touched. I really felt like the universe needed to hear that and amplify
Ooh,
that.
thank you for reading that. I gotta send Jeremy a note.
What else besides the book? I think, there were many people that were registered for this event, many people that are going to catch it on the replay. And certainly all of you here, again, thank you so much. One of the things I think we're all struggling with is, how best to support you and your family and honor Ryan's legacy.
Oh, well, thank you for even asking that question. Anytime anybody thinks of us, one of my favorite things is when someone's thinking about me or my kids or Ryan and they just text me or email me or send me a message and they say, "We're thinking about you and sending you good energy and prayers and good vibes." That alone, the idea that people remember and that they're remembering that person, that to you is your whole world and it's all you can think about 24/7, that's honestly the best gift of all. It is the most powerful too, because I think we're all looking for connection and community. And so feeling that community behind you. I mean, my kids talk about it all the time. Every time I show them a picture or something, they're like, so many people know dad and you and are there for us. And that alone, it's more than any money could buy. If you do, have the book and you'd be so kind to leave a review, that helps more people see it. Or if you maybe bought an extra copy and you want to donate it to, like the local children's library in your town or the school, that also helps. But I think those are really, like I said, the most important thing is, just being there for other people.
And you mentioned, like, just even some of the ways there's not an expectation here, just anybody to just text you or email you. Again, just to remind everybody that I did put those links in the chat for all of Samantha's entities. I think that's such a great way, such a great lesson, not only for Ryan, but and for yourself and for your family, but who else, who possibly within our community, needs to have that as well. I'm always touched when somebody reaches out and they're like, "Hey, you're thinking about you." I remember Sonia Dreisler texting me flowers, like just like, hey, she had a different arrangement each week. Like it's just the simplest thing. So such a great
And I
lesson.
think, and not even just me, but,
Yeah.
think of the people in your life that maybe have a cancer diagnosis or who are going through something tough, even if it's not cancer. And I think a lot of times we don't know what to say, so maybe we don't say anything at all. But as simple, just thinking of you is just so powerful, being able to just say, hey, I'm thinking of you. You don't need to solve this for the person. You just need to be there for them. And that is what I have found has really, really been helpful. I mean, of course, it's nice when people show up and bring you a meal or send flowers to your house. I'm never going to turn any of that down. But like I said, at the end of the day, those messages are what really, buoy you. And I've been really trying to adopt the attitude of my husband, even after he got his diagnosis and he knew um, what his end would look like, right? Like we all have a death sentence, but we are not all specific on what our end looks like. And he knew. So he was walking around with that. And he would say every day, he would say it out loud, I am the luckiest man in the world. And that was just so inspiring to me because I think it's really easy to have a bad day or to have a bad day at work or not get the house you bid on or not get the job that you applied for or have the technology not working the way you want to do and you're frustrated and to let it derail you. And so much of his outlook on life was, I'm here today still, and I'm married and to my best friend, and I have these three beautiful, healthy kids, and I've built, and he just was so relentless on focusing on what he did have and not what he didn't or what maybe was going to end. And I just want to share that message with as many people as possible because I think the thing is, something tragic happens and we get like that for a day or two or week or month, and then slowly normal life goes back and it's easy to fall back into that rut. And so many people have messaged me saying, I saw a picture of you talking about, your husband hugging your son and how your son would do anything for a dad hug. And it made me stop everything I was doing and go hug my kids. And like that to me is just so powerful.
Yeah, this is all about perspective, ladies and gentlemen. I would love to talk a little bit about, if it's okay with you, to go a little bit off script and talk a little bit about the diagnosis. One of the things that I've seen, and this has touched me both personally, just from my own stance, but also too from people reaching out to me as well, is the getting the diagnosis of cancer. And I've seen a lot of people and heard a lot of stories that where people have been misdiagnosed, right? Because of age, because of an excuse that they necessarily didn't get the treatment or the things, or even some of the cancers are asymptomatic until you're really further
Yeah.
along. Was there anything in Ryan that you learned from Ryan's battle and his own diagnosis that to just be more aware of it,
Yeah.
because yeah, I mean, I know you two to be like you're the picture of the healthiest family in the world.
I mean, he was at CrossFit 5, 6 days a week. We ate no gluten, no sugar for the most part. I mean, every once in a while, we weren't gluten free because of celiac or anything, but we were just trying to avoid things from our bodies that we knew didn't make us feel great. And he just started having these headaches. And they were, for the most part, they weren't debilitating. He could function, he would take Excedrin and be able to get on with it, but they just weren't getting better. They were ramping up, and he saw multiple doctors, and everybody just kept dismissing it. And I think actually one of the things I'm most proud of him for is that, no offense to the men out there, but a lot of men, especially, would kind of like not go back to the doctor. And he kept going back saying, I don't need to live like this. Like, there has to be a solution. And so finally, the one doctor said, we've ruled out all of the sorry, my daughter's making faces at me. We've ruled out, this is not
Hi,
funny. That's why I'm
Grace.
smiling. We've ruled out all of the, everything that is kind of easy to rule out. And the symptoms all seem to be neurological because he also was having like a weird twitch in his eye and these headaches. And he sometimes would get like a floater. And so
Yeah.
they were like, let's just get an MRI, which I since have learned that's very rare for a doctor to do that.
Mm.
And he just was persistent in going. And then when we had the MRI, I mean, I'll never forget it. We live in a very small town, State College, Pennsylvania, and he walked out of the MRI. Normally they send you home, you don't hear anything for a while. And I was sitting in the waiting room. It was 8:30 at night, and my husband looked like he'd seen a ghost. His eyes were just this wide. And he said, we have to leave here and go to the emergency room right now. And I said, well, why? And he said, they found a bunch of lesions on my brain. They think they don't know what they are. And I was like, they already gave you the report? Like, I was so shocked by that alone. I was
Wow.
like focusing on that. And at the time, they really couldn't tell what it was. Because if you know anything about cancer or brain cancer specifically, they do something called enhance on the scan when they're cancerous because of the way the blood is coming in and out. It looks kind of like it lights up. And they weren't enhancing, so they didn't know if it was MS or COVID brain. That's why
Mm,
they didn't immediately think, this is cancer. And also the amount of tumor was just so much that they almost thought like if you had this much tumor, you wouldn't be walking and talking and normal.
right.
Um, so that he was life flighted actually from the emergency room to the University of Pennsylvania, and then had a brain surgery maybe a week and a half later. But I mean, I would just say when you know something is wrong, even if it's something that seems small, but it's sort of nagging at you, to really follow your gut. And if you don't get an answer, just to be persistent because um, we're usually right that something's wrong, even if we don't know what it is.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really do think that the information just, benefits people. Um, it could happen no matter how healthy you are, no matter how many workouts you're doing, no matter what you're eating. And again, not to scare anybody, but just to be really vigilant, hyper vigilant about your own health and any changes like Ryan was.
And
Can you
I
talk?
was, oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that was so crazy to me was he had this brain surgery, and the next day he left the hospital. I mean, it was the next day, and it wasn't like a massive brain surgery at the time. It's almost like a open biopsy. And he went home, and we were waiting 2 weeks for the like to find out what the true diagnosis was. And in that time is when he really like nailed this book in those 2 weeks. He had, like I said, picked it back up after we sold our business, but hadn't really finished it. And it was like he just had this clarity around, I've
Mm.
always said I want to do this. I've got who knows what's coming down the pipe, but and I just to this day am floored that someone who just had brain surgery, you know, could create something and polish it off like this.
It speaks so much about his resilience, um, his grit, but moreover, I think the most important thing is his love of you, Samantha, Hudson, Grace, and Teddy. Like I could totally see that he was going to make this happen, move heaven and earth to do whatever it took, but speaks so highly of how he felt about his family. He was really a family man, just like I think everybody who knew your husband just absolutely adored him. He was loved and admired in so many circles. Can you talk a little bit, and this came up in last week's Invest in Women conference by Financial Advisor magazine when we had a panel about serious illness. Can you talk a little bit about Ryan's decision and your decision to go public, number one, and then to actually post and create a blog, my-gray-matters.com, which thank you, by the way, that it's still up. Um, because, anybody that's going through any type of traumatic health experience wants to learn from other people who have been there. But what was that discussion like for you? Because here he is, right? He gets the diagnosis, which is crippling. Crippling. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever had a cancer diagnosis, which you know that I have, it is crippling. Okay, you are thrown off. Your life is all of a sudden it's completely it's wrecked. You can't think, you can't do normal decisions that are very simple in nature. You can't do it. You're absolutely paralyzed. It's that encompassing. It's that horrific. And I'm noticing that here he is. He has the diagnosis, which is paralyzing in itself. The surgery on top of that. Then, oh, by the way, rushes and creates this incredible book, children's book, best-selling author now, everyone, and illustrator. Um, and in addition, you're sharing the stories. You now launch a blog on top of that. Like the normal, I think, the normal human response might be, you know what, I'm going to curl up in a ball and I'm going to show up in life and make sure, like, act like everything's okay.
Yeah.
I was really, I was in awe, absolute in awe of that response.
Thank
Could you
you.
just talk about that?
Um, so it's funny. I don't know how public Ryan would have been, like to the extent that became as big of a story as it did. But what happened was, we were sitting in the hospital. He's still pretty much on medication coming out of the surgery, and the doctor had told us it's like one of these three things. And I just had a really bad feeling that it was the cancer because for various reasons. And so, we talked about if it was brain cancer, what would that mean? And, glioblastoma, you're given anywhere from a few months to a year and a half to live. And it just was like a sucker punch to my gut. And I thought, I have to see like what clinical trials are out there, right? Because I had just heard about a clinical trial where there was no cure for this one cancer and four people ended up basically having it completely go away. Um, and so I started doing some digging and I found two things. One was in Germany and one was in Japan, where they were basically giving people, one was they were giving them the herpes virus actually in the brain. And then that was Japan. And then in Germany, they were building individualized vaccines, where they take your blood and they take tumor samples and then they build a vaccine that's literally like the Ryan Russell vaccine. And I probably spent 24 hours online, like searching through medical journals, because a lot of this stuff, there's no website for it. And I found the name of, in Japan, the doctor who was running it, but there was no contact information. And so I just needed help. And so I went on LinkedIn because, I think I have 40,000 connections almost at this point. And I was like, somebody has to know something. Our world is too small. Somebody has to know something or know somebody who knows something. And so I just posted it saying, like, we need help. And then I basically quickly realized, like, oh gosh, I need to ask my husband if this is okay. And so the way he tells it was I called him up because this was a couple days later and said, hey, would you be okay if I posted this publicly looking for help? And he was like, oh, I don't know. I got to think. And I was like, well, I already did it because I sort of asked for forgiveness and we laughed about it. But that's sort of what happened. And then once it was public, and so many people were rooting for us and cheering us on and helping us and calling hospitals from around the world and getting their friends involved. Ryan just said, I want to be in the driver's seat of this story and I want to use it for good. And he, to your point, loved to read blogs or stories of other people who had the same diagnosis as him. And he thought, if this can be helpful to them, then I want to do it. And we still get emails from that Migraine Matters website from people all over the world saying, oh, we're going to CGAT because that's the clinic in Germany we ultimately end up going to. Can you tell me more about it? Or my husband just got diagnosed with this and I'm losing my mind. Can you talk? And so we, again, talking about community and stuff, like we I don't know. There's no good answers, and bringing awareness to any kind of condition is always one of the best ways to actually make a difference in the long run, because then with awareness comes funding and all that good stuff. So that's sort of what happened. I feel like it wasn't as well thought out maybe as it seemed from the outside, but once it happened, Ryan, like all things in life, created this beautiful website. I mean, if you look at it, like that's all him. He designs all of the designs of it. The layout, it's what he did for a living and he was amazing at it.
Even the choice of URL,
Yes.
even the naming too, it was so distinct. Trying to get a .com in today's era and leave it to him, just like figure out something brilliant. I do want to, I do have, we do have a question from Mary. Mary, I'm going to allow you to ask your question if that's okay. Hope that's okay. Okay. There you go. Okay. Hopefully you can hear us, Mary.
I think she's just muted still.
Yeah. If you want to unmute, that'd be great. Okay, here we go.
So sorry, I pressed that by mistake.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Oh, well, no problem at all. Well, thank you. This was good. It was the first time that I actually invited someone actually to answer their question. So this was good training.
good
Thank you
practice
so much for that. Thank you
for
so
being
much
here.
for that. Okay. So now I don't know how to okay,
Turn it
great.
off.
Okay,
Oh,
there
there we
I
go.
got it. I got it. Figuring out how to toggle now from that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about My Grade Matters, and I think um, one of the most poignant Ryan Russell quotes, I think, and life lessons that there ever was, when you were faced with a challenge. Um, and we want to give you back some 15 minutes of your day, your grace, your kids and your birthday. It is a message that I carry around with me everywhere in my bag, in my special collection of amazing things and things that people that lift me up and inspire me. Within On My Gray Matters, there's a couple of things to note. That number one, there's Ryan's last letter that is dated 11/8/23. And the reason why I want to take you all there, and here, I'll put the link very much in the chat so that you can you can follow it along with me, is that this was just more than a children's book. I think that the way that Ryan shared his perspective and created this whole entire ecosystem around what was happening, for the benefit of all of us, Samantha, is something to be commended. There's so many life lessons here. Do you want to talk a little bit about the origin story, about the life lessons? And I would love to end with his famous quote, the one that was on the mask card.
Yeah. So, I used to joke to my husband he could have been a motivational speaker because he always had these little quips and things he would say to our kids or to me or to our employees when we, had our company. And he would often write them down. So he didn't have actually a list of his life lessons, but after he passed, I went back through his writings and was writing them all down and realized there were 10, which is, you know, just a
How
magical number,
perfect.
exactly 10. And I thought, instead of at the funeral, everyone coming and just having kind of a generic prayer card, Ryan was such a creator. He had such a stamp on everything he did. Like, let's make it specific to him and use these 10 life lessons. So if you knew him, you heard him say these things, but he wouldn't have said, like, these are my life lessons. In fact, I was a little bit nervous that from heaven he would be cringing at me, like, oh gosh. But I know from so many people who've reached out that they've kept this card and they look at them. Me and my kids have it at our dinner table, and I let them each go around every night and decide like which one do they want to read for the day, and then tell a little
Oh,
bit about how they exemplified it. And yeah, I mean, I don't want him to be a perfect person because that's none of us are perfect, but he was
sure.
striving for perfection all of the time.
Mm. One of his most inspiring messages, also too, on that prayer card, is Ryan's perspective on what to do when you face a challenge. And again, like we were talking earlier, right? Challenges can be not necessarily health related. They could
Absolutely.
be family related. They could be business related, and and those challenges are really extreme and really intense for people. And I love Ryan's perception about what to do when faced with those challenges. Do you want to read it? You want me to read it? Want
Yeah, sure. Let me just pull it up because I don't
Okay,
have it right
yeah.
in front of me.
This is such
And I know
these are
almost know it by
words.
heart, but I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah. These are words while you're looking to Samantha. These are words to tattoo,
Oh,
to tattoo to your arm, to walk around with any time that you're in a bad mood or you feel like depressed, defeated from something that you're going through, I look at these words and I'm like, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
this is how actually I want to approach a challenge, and I've had a bunch of them lately.
Yes,
Um
you have.
so so yeah, so let's talk about it. There's such wise words. I want to leave you with
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so it says, when you are faced with a challenge, there are only two options. You can turn away and hide, or you can go headfirst into the storm. We will all fail at times. That's part of life. But let's be brave enough to run headfirst into the storm. And if we stumble and fall, that's okay. That's part of the process. But if you fall, fall forward, because a little bit of progress is still a step in the right direction.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Samantha. Any and we get such a kind note from Jason Smith. My heart goes out to your family, Samantha. Ryan was brave beyond words. I believe his legacy will live on through you and your beautiful children. And anyone who reads this book, God promised us eternal life. So know that you will be reunited with him one day. God bless you and your family.
Thank
Always in
you,
my
Tina.
prayers. God bless you too, also, Tina.
You know,
Mm.
I have to say, it's funny. I get so sad when I think about the end of my husband's life, and I cry a lot when I tell that part of the story. But whenever I'm talking about just him and his attitude and his perception, all the things he did, it just brings me so much happiness. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about him because, a lot of times someone passes and people are scared to ask them about them because they think it's going to make them cry. But whenever I'm talking about him and all of his awesomeness, it makes me so happy.
We have a beautiful comment too from Danica Waddell. This was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing with us.
Oh, I just
Well,
got to meet you, Danica, and it
oh,
just
at
feels so
Shift,
good.
right?
Yes,
She was
yes.
at Shift too.
You guys are making me so happy.
Oh, Denise too, reminding people. Sam, thank you for reminding people live on when we speak about them.
Hi,
This is, and I
Denise.
know that Denise can identify with the loss of her brother. Who
You
she
guys are
lost
all the most wonderful people,
to
and
suicide.
I
What
just thank you all so much.
Well, we appreciate you so much. And let us know, Samantha. Please keep in touch with us. Was there anything else that I failed to mention that we should have like talked about on here? Any parting words?
I don't think so. I just thank you again for this opportunity. The books are almost sold out. We almost completely sold them out with the initial print of the publisher. So there's a few hanging around on Amazon. So if you haven't gotten yours, that's the place to do it. And thank you all for spending time today hearing Ryan's story. I mean, that is just the most wonderful gift you could give me. So thank you.
And I have some extra copies too. So my email is in there, tina@growintentionally.com for books. So please, if you haven't gotten a book, Kelly Waltrick made, and I made some, lots of extra copies here for you. So, please just let us know. And Samantha, wishing you and your family, wishing your Grace a very happy birthday. Have a wonderful time in Disney World. And thank you again so much for being here. It's always so great to see you.
Thank you.
We love you and your children very, very deeply.
Oh, I love you so much. Thank you, Tina.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you for this.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.